Is the great Bray Shaman of Beasts any good? I'm semi-randomly picking the lore of Beasts as a good way to go over the options. I wasn't sure what to expect, but there are some very interesting quirks you can get out of a great brave shaman, provided you can keep Louis the Occur from killing yours. My first campaign was not so fortunate. Please like, subscribe, comment, and consider donating to my Ko-fi page. Thank you! I'm only going to briefly show the stats on screen because, as you can see, there's virtually no difference between the Great Bray Shaman and the Bray Shaman except hit points, a little leadership, and that's actually it. On mounts, both do less weapon damage than the melee lord and hero Gores, and that's just how it is. The blue and red lines are also exactly the same as for the Beast Lord and Doom Bull, which means Apocalyptic Vision to directly boost melee attack is your red line capstone area effect. I mean, it boosts leadership too, but the melee attack is notable. A lot of factions get melee defense instead. So I'll run you through the lore of Beasts quickly just to remind everyone where things stand. The passive, Wild Heart, increases power recharge for 25 seconds after casting every spell. It's nice to have, certainly. Wissen's Wild form is the first spell of the tree. In its current form, it grants plus 25% to both types of melee damage, and adds 30 armor with a range of 200 meters, 4 winds cost by default, and 19 seconds duration, cooldown of 28 seconds. Overcasting means you can cover a 35 meter radius circle with it. The problem with the spell is extremely simple. Entities that don't hit don't do increased damage, they don't do any damage. That said, the ability to add armor on demand helps low armor units like, Gore Herds, Centaurs. Block of Doom is the renowned area of effect damage spell. They've changed how it works in 3 a little bit, but the point is really quite simple. The advantage of the spell is that I'll do some damage to all mid to high model count units in the area of effect, and it's Winds of Magic efficient. That is, if you're fighting a long battle and have a lot of time to cast it, you'll get tens of thousands of points of damage potential. In the here and now, less so. Since these are ticks, overcasting at double the winds cost really does double the damage, but a lot of times players will avoid doing this because the miscast chance isn't worth it over the course of a long battle. Overcasting also extends the range from 100 to 300 meters, making it a force the enemy to come to you spell potentially. The Amber Spear is a straight-line magic missile attack. The direct damage is heavily armor-piercing, and the explosion effect is all armor-piercing. But this is not the focus of the lore, and a lot of people don't like using it. More to the point, a lot of people prefer to use it with flying mounts, and, well, you don't get one. Sorry, Beastmen, no Minotaur mounts for you. Yes, I've had some people ask me why CA doesn't allow it, and it's a good question, and I do not have the answer. Pan's impenetrable Pelt is your second defensive buff, granting 25% speed, plus 24 melee defense, and plus 20 physical resistance to a lone target, or an area if overcast. Duration is 31 seconds, and it has a cooldown listed at 43 seconds, which is long. Both the melee defense and the physical resistance are hedges against armor-piercing damage for most factions, but here it's more like a hedge against any kind of physical damage or any kind of melee attrition. It also gets you into melee even faster. That's a good thing. The Curse of Enra here is a hex spell that constitutes a general debuff of enemy units for 21 seconds with a cooldown of 47 seconds, which I'm bringing attention to because you have to time it for when it really counts. The effects are formidable. Minus 24 melee attack, and minus 24 melee defense, and minus 25 speed, and minus 30 accuracy. So I wonder if this was a thing in Warhammer 2. I might be off on that. Anyway, it's a big deal. Overcasting costs 14 versus the original 11, but all it does is expand the radius from 35 meters to 55 meters, which feels like a lot, but that's math for you. 20 meters more radius means 40 meters more diameter. Transformation of Cadan costs 20 wins and has 2 summons max. Usually. There's a tech to enhance that for the Beastmen. Anyway, the vanilla version, and some factions have special variants, but the vanilla version summons a Feral Manticore with all the advantages and disadvantages thereof. This gives you a way to initiate combat against a reluctant force, to compel a force to blob up, or to simply let it go rampage and slow down and distract a foe in a vain attempt to snipe the artillery. I have lived that one. Different factions have different potential ways to exploit these effects. For the Beastmen specifically, I've had a hard time figuring out what I'd use the Touched by the Moon army ability on. After 40-odd seconds, the spell murs the hell out of your own unit. But wait, what if that unit was a summons to begin with? Ooh. So yeah, there are ways. The Dark Elves have their own. Now, I wanted to get this out of the way for the Great Bray Shaman so that we have context for the special seasoning. Behold! Fueled by blood, we saw that in the Beast Lord video. It increases army speed by 5% and reduces the rate of fatigue accumulation by 15%. Voice of the Dark Gods is the same as before, it just expands the encouragement range. Keep in mind the Beastmen can increase the power of this aura early on with a tech. Distorted Reality. Hold on, this is new. This is a passive ability that affects a 35-meter radius, inflicting -5 to melee attack and -10% to enemy charge bonus and speed. So it's invoked full-time, you only need proximity. I know there's a favor shop item, sorry if that's not the formal term, that has a similar effect, but the Great Bray Shaman only needs to be level 8 and to expend a point. Darkling Spirit is available at rank 12 and gives you Savage Dominion, just like the favor shop item would, granting the Lord version Shaman the ability to summon a Gore up to twice a battle with a cooldown of 120 seconds. For free. No winds of magic necessary. Now, do you see why I covered the Great Bray Shaman of Beasts? He already has the Feral Manticore summons, but he can pull in a Gore for free twice a battle. This alone was worth doing a video. My Great Bray Shamans were Louis-fied too quickly to reach rank 12. I forgive them. There was dirty triple teaming by multiple order factions. For me to see this in my first campaign. Speaker of Darkling Council also becomes available at rank 12, but in reality it becomes available at rank 13, because no sane person is going to take it over Darkling Spirit. Having said that, it grants -10% wins cost to all of your spells, I presume that's the Lord only, but it also increases the wins cost of all spells for all enemies in the local province. In other words, he doesn't even need to be on the battle map, or even in the battle at all. He just needs to be in the province to influence the outcome. We have the usual uncanny senses for 15% spell resistance, and gnarled hide for 10% missile resistance. Neither bad things. But then we get an option between two flavors of boosts, and these boosts are fundamentally different from those available to melee Gores and Minotaur Lords. As before, they become available at rank 5, which would tend to delay your death march to Arcane Conduit with all these detours. Dreads and Charms adds 15 armor and +5 melee defense to the Bray Shaman himself. Now you start off pretty squishy overall, possibly mitigated by very particular traits, but adding 15 armor while on a Razor Gore chariot means 115 armor, which is starting to get kind of serious. Ardent Pelts adds 15 armor to the following units: Chaos Warhounds, Harpies, Razor Gore Herd, Chaos Spawn, Giants, Jabberslice, Gorgons, Cygors, and Manticores. At this point, you're probably having my reaction. Nani? We've just discovered that the Great Bray Shaman is intended to be a leader of beasts. This is very good and very interesting to know. I was wondering what this was hiding. This is the second reason I wanted to cover the lore of beasts specifically, because you see how all of a sudden a spell or two from the Lord can make the effective armor of a whole bunch of these units suddenly seem, halfway legitimate? So what about the other one? Okay, we have Dual Wielder, which adds 15% weapon strength and 15% charge bonus to the Bray Shaman. Now, both the weapon strength and charge bonus were nerfed by default compared to the melee lords and heroes. This one skill goes a long way toward reversing that. All of a sudden, your Bray Shaman fights almost as viciously as a dedicated warrior, without the melee line help, mind. Hitting harder is great, but you have to hit in the first place. Well, there's Gore Bulls, and then there's Apocalyptic Vision, and so on to help. So what about the army buff? Let's see. Bellows of the Discordant. Weapon strength plus 15% for the following units: Chaos Warhounds, Harpies, Razor Gore Herd, Chaos Spawn, Giants, Jabberslice, Gorgons, Cygors, Manticores. Oh, wow. I mean, let's be blunt. When a giant starts at 700 weapon strength before techs and redline skills, and then you add 15% on top of that, and that isn't a limited duration spell. It's literally for every moment of the entire battle. That is a big deal. Do we actually have to teach the Great Bray Shaman magic? Can we just let him use the red line and that's it? Okay, I'm gushing, but this is a very impactful buff. Now, let's rewind a couple of entries. Chaos Warhounds, Harpies, Razor Gore Herd. There's a buff by the War Gore that adds Frenzy to all of those units and makes them inflict fear. Even if it was just adding armor to those units, it means something, but 15% weapon strength on top of the 10% weapon strength from Frenzy. At least as long as the Frenzy holds. I mean, they also have to hit their targets to do damage, but this presents opportunities for an entirely different kind of army build. That is why I wanted to do this video, and not just to spite Louis Lyon. Take care and have fun unleashing your inner beast on your foes, plus the outer beasts as well. Hey, you buff them like this, so why not?